the explosion was so powerful, all the dust from the ground was able to get blown out. And as I look around me, I'm fucking surrounded in a goddamn minefield, brother. My name's Thomas Praxedes, and I served in the United States Marine Corps, and I did exactly 17 and a half years before I was approved for early retirement. My job in the Marine Corps, I was in the infantry most of my time, but my non-operational time was more so in recruiting. So I went from infantry to recruiting back to the infantry, and then I finally ended my final years in the Corps recruiting in Orange County. So all of the recruiting offices here, I managed and
Nice.
led multiple recruiting offices.
Yeah. What was your MOS in the as infantry?
Yeah, so I enlisted as a 0331 machine gunner in 2003, and and I got out as a gunny. So
What year did you get out?
I got out 2020, December 31st.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Nice. Talk to me a little bit about your upbringing. Where were you born, and what was your childhood upbringing like?
Yeah, so I was born in Los Angeles in 1985, and I had an absent father most of my life. My mom, she raised me for a minute, and then my stepdad entered the picture, and grew up went humble beginnings. Grew up in LA near like the Echo Park area, kind of some impoverished times. Definitely with a single mom at the time. And I also, went to a Catholic school most of my life. Like that was like the one thing I remember, at least my mother trying to do, was put me keep me within my faith, and allow me, give me like a moral compass, if you will. So I spent most of my time doing that in LA, and then eventually we moved up to Covina, California, and we got a house there, and I just went to a public school from there on out, and I was just a normal high school kid.
Yeah. What inspired you to go enlist in the Marine Corps?
So I went to Charter Oak High School, and I wanted to be a soldier, an Army soldier, and I never knew what a Marine was until one day a Marine walked in my high school, and he wore dress blues, and I saw him for the first time, and I was like, what the hell is this? I've never seen this before. He had medals, he looked good, he fit the part, and I guess with the Marines, with the Marine recruiter, they normally, they don't hunt you down, actually. I mean, some do, but most of the time they kind of use like a reverse psychology technique. And the Army guy was really cool with me. I got stickers off of him. But the Marine, the moment I said I was like, I'm thinking about joining the military. What's the Marines all about? And his demeanor, his look to me, just kind of sizing me up. I'm a short kid. He's just like, I don't think you have what it fucking takes. And that's all I needed, was to be like, what? Nah, I'm gonna do it. And it wasn't until September 11th that was like the catalyst for me that made me want to join. I was still young when September 11th happened. I was a junior in high school. I couldn't enlist, but the very next year, my birthday, September 29th, when I turned 17, on September 30th, that's when I joined the delayed entry program, and I enlisted in the Marine Corps.
Wow.
Yeah.
What unit did you get dropped to?
I got dropped into 3rd Battalion, 1st Marines in Camp Horno in Camp Pendleton. That was my first duty station. Always remember it. We got dropped off in the field, and some of the, at the time, I revere my drill instructors were heroes to me. They were the best. But man, seeing those young 18, 19-year-old combat veterans from OIF 1 that went through Nasiriyah, did the initial push in full mop gear, those guys were the ones that I truly feared, but I admired and respected to this day. They were the ones, they were my first impression of real Marines.
Yeah. What was it like getting, as a new Marine, showing up to a new infantry unit?
Oh man, you already know how it is. They fuck with you. you know, and I got dropped in during the time when we were wearing all boots. We were in digital camis, and all of our senior Marines were still in tricolors, and they refused to make the switch because that was just like their thing. Dude. So at the time, you know, there's no telling, like you can't even hide that you're a boot. You're in digital. If you're in digital camis, you're immediately a fucking boot. You're gonna get messed with, and you know, at the time, you know, you get a mix. You get a group of senior Marines that are just turds that just want to mess with you just to mess with you, and then you get the other mix who are really combat hardened leaders who they mess with you, but there's a purpose behind it. They want to train you, they want to take care of you, and those are the guys that to this day, like I remember them, you know, as if it was yesterday. They really tried to take care of us, and you know, you're afraid just like anybody else. You're a young 18-year-old kid. You don't know what the hell is going on. War is on the horizon, but you know, just being with those guys, they kind of make it. They kind of make you feel comfortable. Yeah. You know that you're going to war soon.
Yeah. Did you get attached to a MEU or did you fly over?
Fly over, man.
You flew over?
Yeah.
Into Kuwait or?
We flew into Kuwait, and we spent 2 weeks in Kuwait, and this is where I realized, like, for the longest time when we were doing the workup, or for the 2 months we were doing the workup, my senior Marines were, you know, to me I felt like they were assholes. But when we were in Kuwait, I started to see real combat leadership from the beginning. One of my squad leaders named Sergeant Grantham, he was a good dude, and to this day I always look up to him. In Kuwait, he would pull us out of our tents, and he would have us sit in the heat in the bunker, and we would drink water, and he would just talk to us as like men. And at the time I didn't know why, and we would sit out there for hours, but he was acclimatizing us to the heat, and he would just get our minds right. He wouldn't fuck with us at this point. He would just kind of just have a man-to-man talk and just really, really just get us prepared for the fight that's to come. And I miss those moments, and I treasure those moments, because that was my first taste of what real combat leadership looked like. Is just something as simple as bringing us out in the heat and doing that. It's something that I remember, you know.
So do you remember pushing into Iraq?
Yeah. So when we pushed to Iraq, we were hooked up. So I was Lima Company 3-1, and I don't think we were the main effort, because we had a pretty dumb commanding officer. A CO, our captain, was not the best. So our battalion commander, whose name is Colonel Buell, good guy, stuck our company in probably the most least kinetic area in Iraq. We were at the Abu Ghraib prison. We lived there for fucking 4 months, and it was really, really cush. I'm talking. I mean, we still took small arms fire and some indirect fire, and there were some little pockets of combat here and there. But man, I mean, we lived with the Army. There was salsa night. There was gaming night.
You guys are dancing salsa in Iraq?
Some of these Marines that get in there, yeah. We lived in these prison cells where, you know, Saddam Hussein put his political prisoners in. It was 4 Marines per cell. There was air conditioning there. We were on base with the Army, with CIA, with all sorts of special agencies there. So we lived pretty good for the good first 4 months, man.
Wow. What happened after that 4 months?
So in the 4 months, we patrolled a city called Nasr wa Salam. That was our area of operation. We just did a lot of vehicle operations, standard patrols. I think we took maybe one KI killed in action. A vehicle, an IED detonated near a vehicle and killed him instantaneously. But during that time, it wasn't as stressful. You know, like I was like, fuck, man, this is what war is. It's not really. It's pretty boring. But as we were progressing through the deployment, we started to hear more and more about how Fallujah is starting to explode because of the first battle. The Marines got pulled out prematurely, but the second one that was coming, we just knew that eventually we're gonna go out there. So we were the senior Marine battalion on deck, and after 4 months, one day they told us to pack our bags. They wouldn't let us know where we were going. They said, "Pack your bags. We're leaving the prison. We're gonna leave this area of operation. You're gonna move out." We had no clue we were going, but then we ended up in Camp Fallujah, which was probably 10, 15 miles away from Fallujah. And then we got the warning order that we were gonna push forward the line of departure and go into a full-fledged fight into this fucking godforsaken city. We didn't know it was going to be a fight yet till we were in Camp Fallujah, and they had a series of like empty houses, and we were training again in Camp Fallujah. And I remember all of us young Marines, we were like, why the fuck are we training again? Why are we doing these small little workups like we just did? We're in combat. And every day, man, on top, when we would come back from patrols, we would train. We would clear rooms, we couldn't throw grenades, we were throwing rocks. We were doing a ton of rock drills. And we just had no clue. Until one day, you know, our platoon sergeant, our platoon commander sat us down. They're like, "Hey, we're about to go in the city. It's coming any moment now. We just need a little bit more approval from higher." And we ended up just getting the actual warning order that it's going to happen. And it wasn't a big deal until they ended up serving us some fucking steak and lobsters for the night before. And it's crazy because you already know when you're getting steak and lobsters, you're getting a good meal like that. You're like, what the hell is going on? I'm the lowest man at the totem pole. I'm Lance Corporal Praxedes. I have no idea what the hell we're doing. Yeah. And we get steak and lobsters, and we get the actual patrol order of how we're going to do this. And holy shit, man, we load the Amtracs and we do a couple feints for the first 2 weeks. So what we do is we start attacking, we start pushing one side of Fallujah so the enemy thinks that we're heading that side. So we're doing a couple feints, we're in these Amtracs for 8 hours, we're hitting it from afar, we're just kind of providing a presence from afar, and we're trying to have them orient their weapons towards that direction. But when we do the main assault, we're going to come from a different direction and then really push from there. So that was when I knew, kind of like when we were doing the quote unquote feints. That's when I was like, oh shit, okay, this is a big deal. Wow. And so, you know, walk me through that initial push when you guys did decide to go on the offensive and make the attack. So we leave November 8th. It's crazy. We leave on November 8th, and we're in a long vehicle convoy. Mind you, I think there's like, you know, there's thousands of Marines and Army and soldiers going to this. I think there's like maybe 4 or 5 battalions of Marines, all the support needed. And I remember as we were pushing with Humvees to Fallujah, crazy. We were in the high back of these vehicles that were just not even armored. And I remember at one point we saw these we had these black bags underneath our gear and shit, and we don't know who put them there. And I remember I was in a Humvee full of boots, just all of us Lance Corporals, like kind of wondering what the hell's going on. Our team leaders inside the vehicle, and we pull these bags out. And we're like, what the fuck is this? And then word came down the line. These were our own body bags. So we started throwing these body bags out in the goddamn street. We're like, hell no, I'm not carrying this shit. Wow. And then our senior line corpsman sees this shit he's in the rear of the convoy with the CO, and he's yelling at us on the mic. He's like, "You motherfuckers, quit throwing your body bags out." We're like, "Fuck you." Fuck you, Doc. I'm not holding this shit.
Oh, that's fucking bad luck.
Yeah, bad luck, man. And we're pressing to the city already. And mind you, the nightfall's starting to happen. It's raining, and we surround the city. And the whole time, the objective was that we were gonna attack on. We were gonna finally assault the city at morning. So at November 8th at night, man, we sat in the rain, piss rain on us, and we dug in our fighting holes in the rain. And that was like my first taste of like digging a fighting hole in combat. It was fucking nuts.
Yeah. Wow.
And then the next morning we pushed.
When you guys rolled up and you actually got like into the city, like talk to me about like what were the sights you were seeing, the
Yeah.
sounds? Were people out? Were people out because they knew some shit was about to go down? Like, what would that look?
Yeah, yeah, good question. So I want to say a couple days prior to us attacking the city, they had some flyovers and they dropped off like leaflets everywhere, and they practically said to everybody in the city, if you stay in the city, you are considered a combatant. So everybody in Fallujah, which is a big city, they call it like the city of mosque, there was a mass exodus, and anybody who stayed was declared an enemy. So when we first pressed into Fallujah, it was a fucking ghost town. I'm talking people, the shops were closed, the schools were closed, everything was gone. Like there was shit all over the streets. It was literally like doomsday in this area. It was quiet, it was eerie. You can hear some mosque playing some shit. You can see remnants of old fortified fighting positions that were bombed prior to us getting in. It was a ghost town. And we cleared a couple of houses. You know, as we started to push further into the city, we cleared all the outskirt houses. And honestly, I still remember it. We weren't serious then. I remember at times as young Marines, we were joking around in the first couple blocks of the houses. We would go after, you know, the first couple houses, you take it seriously. But after that, when you're not seeing contact, you're like, fuck it. There's not going to be nobody in this house. There's not going to be nobody in this house, so on and so forth. Not until we hit like, I want to say midday, as we got deeper into the city, we were still complacent going in these houses. And then after that, the casualties started to happen. As we got deeper into the city, these are where these guys were waiting for us. And that's where I saw for the first time, like, I saw a Marine get killed in front of me. His name was Sergeant James, and that was probably, at that moment, like, the most traumatic experience that I saw, you know, seeing one of our revered squad leaders just go down in front of us.
What were you guys doing when that happened?
They were stacked up against the house to go in. I was a machine gun team leader at the time, so I was at the perimeter of the house. So I was outside of the house, making sure the alleyway was clear. And, you know, James took his guys inside of a building, and there was about 5 dudes in there, and they immediately shot him in the face. Those 5 dudes, you know, they threw a grenade in there. They all died. But at that moment, it was tough because James, you know, we all loved the guy, and he was a good combat hardened leader. You know, he was in security forces, did that, and you know, I remember manning the gun with my machine gunner, but also seeing his lifeless body being pulled out of there, and we had to we put it in a poncho. We put it in the back of the vehicle, and we drove off, and it fucking sucked, man, because you think to yourself, like, God, like, how, you're trying to make sense of it all. And as we're driving through these windy roads and shit, it's like putting a basketball in the back of an empty trunk. You're hearing the boom, 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 boom. Like, that's his body going around there, you know? So that to me was probably, you know, for sure, like, this is real. This is day 1 only, and we're about to be in a fight.
So did you guys back out after that, or did you continue to push forward? Or
yeah, we decided to. Well, obviously we pushed forward.
Yeah,
and we kept fighting for 3 more months, man. It was like that, and to me, you know, I have never seen fighting as a veteran now. I've never seen combat this intense. You know, urban warfare is something different about it, man. It's not like conventional where you're fighting like in a forest or a jungle. It's fucking close. It's intimate. Like you're able to see the dude's face. You're able to, when you shoot him, when he dies, you're able to see every emotion. It's a 3-dimensional threat. You can get killed from any direction. You're fighting in areas that you once used to hang out in. You know, like we're fighting these dudes in the schoolhouses. We're fighting them in apartment complexes. We're fighting them in the streets. It's in every sense of the word, you're trying to make sense of the whole thing, but it's really like an intimate form of violence, and that was probably the scariest thing about urban warfare. You didn't know when it was coming, and whenever it is, you just can't block those images out of your brain, man. Like these guys were, when you shoot somebody, when people were getting killed, I'm not just saying me, I'm just saying when I saw things happen, you see it in real life, man. It wasn't like 1,000 meters away through a scope.
Man, and you spent how long in Fallujah?
We November, December, we spent 3 months there. So we had to clear the city, and then what was happening as we were pushing and clearing the city, these guys would infiltrate in the back of us, and then we would have to re-clear back and then re-clear again. And then after that, once we cleared the city, we would have to hold on to the city, and that was also tough because we were having pockets of resistance here and there. It was Christmas time. It was cold. You know, you're also kind of tired. We also got extended a month, so at this point we were already at 7 to 8 months in. So combat fatigue was already starting to kick in, and for a young 18-year-old kid, man, you know, and mind you, I already explained my background, where I come from. It's pretty difficult to try to comprehend how you're gonna make it out of there, you know.
And I think you mentioned to me before we started rolling the tape that did you get hurt? Did you get wounded on this mission?
Yeah. So everybody was taking some sort of explosion, you know. I took a piece of shrapnel from a grenade. It could have been, I think it was friendly, you know. But there's been a lot of people got wounded, and what happened was some of the most remarkable things that I saw, man. You know, these guys, you get wounded, you get medevac to the train station, and you see young lance corporals refusing medical attention, and they would hop on the next convoy, didn't matter what it was, to get back into the fight, and they would find themselves back in their units again. Wow. And it was just straight mayhem like that, but it showed me how dedicated, you know, we were to kind of, you know, contribute to the fight.
Yeah. Did you guys have any more casualties on your end?
Yeah. I think all in all we lost close to like over 30. I know there was over 500, I think about close to 500 wounded in our battalion. It was so bad that when we finally came home from deployment, every Friday at 1300 was Purple Heart ceremony time.
Wow.
Like we had to have a schedule for it because everyone was getting a Purple Heart. Every single motherfucker was getting a Purple Heart. Wow. And then you also saw some of the great things. You saw the people getting NAMs and Navy Combat Valors and Silver Stars and Navy Crosses for the heroic shit that was done there. You know, like First Sergeant or Sergeant Major Castle, guys like that who are the hallmark of the Marine Corps today. And yeah, we lost a lot of people. You know, like I told you, Fallujah will go down as one of the most intense urban house-to-house fighting in our generation. Being in both wars, understanding, you know, the global war on terrorism, Fallujah will be there as something that we can look at as a case study and just look at as far as like, man, what a fucking fight. Like these guys refuse to give us an inch of ground without fighting, and they wanted to fight.
Yeah, I'd like to get into your next deployment, which I believe was Afghanistan, right?
Yeah.
Because you said you wanted to talk a little bit more about that one. Unless you have anything else you want to talk about Fallujah before we move on.
No, yeah, no, I can maybe brush on just certain things in recruiting that led me to Afghan.
Absolutely.
So on recruiting duty, I was struggling with with the battles of Iraq, but I also really wanted to make an impact because I just love the Corps. I feel that these two stories are really good, but I recruited two young men, Lance Corporal Donald Hogan and Corporal Jordan Stanton, and these two men ended up going to Afghanistan, and they both got killed. And that has been, you know, one of the biggest, in my non-operational time, that was one of my heavier burdens, was finding these young men and bringing them home and sending them to combat. But I think one of the highlights on recruiting duty was when Jordan Stanton was killed, I was asked to do the dignified transfer. Have you ever seen the movie Taking Chance?
I don't think so.
Yeah, it's pretty sad, man. It's what happens when a Marine dies. I didn't know that when a Marine dies on the battlefield, they are transported to Dover Air Force Base exactly how they died. They're not cleaned up yet. It's a murder practically. And when they go to Dover Air Force Base, it is a Marine's job. There's a Marine that is assigned to pick him up and do the dignified transfer to take him back home to his lasting burial spot. And to me, doing that for Donald Hogan and doing that for Jordan Stanton, you know, hearing about their deaths, going to Dover Air Force Base, getting the orders to do that, it was heart-wrenching for me, because I met these kids in high school. I did their packages, their administrative packages. I know their social security numbers, their birth dates, all their personal information. But you fast forward to 2 years later from the time I recruited them, and I'm at Dover Air Force Base, and I'm seeing the same social security number in my face, and I have to sign for him like he's a piece of fucking gear. That was like heart-wrenching for me. And that's what led me to volunteer to try to find the next deploying unit to Afghanistan after my tour on recruiting duty. So when Hogan died, Hogan was posthumously given the Navy Cross. He saved like 7 dudes.
Wow.
I wanted to go to Afghanistan. So the Marine Corps, in all of its mercy and grace, they helped me out, and they actually assigned me to Hogan's battalion, to Hogan's company, and Hogan's platoon. So I was the platoon sergeant for the guys that he actually served with. So when I checked into 1-5, they were looking at me like, who the fuck's this new staff sergeant? And I said, hey, I'm Lance Corporal Hogan's recruiter. And there was an immediate connection with all of them, because they saw him die in NAWA deployment. And now here I am with them, about to go to Sangin with them.
Bro, that's fucking giving me, I got chills all over my body right now, man.
Marine Corps put me with that battalion, with that same platoon, man.
Wow.
And yeah, I couldn't be more grateful for the Corps. They're maybe trying to help me out, I guess, but also to benefit for them. They got another Marine willing to go to combat.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I volunteered, because everybody fucking goes, but I wanted to go somewhere that at least was in the West Coast. I wanted to stay close to my family still, but I wanted to have some meaning towards it, and I'm really glad that the Corps hooked me up there. The stars aligned.
And what was your mindset with that? You know, being in you know, Hogan's you know, around all his brothers and your brothers, obviously, but the ones that were with him when he got killed. Did you have like a revenge mindset? Like you know, what were you thinking?
Yeah. Maybe definitely. I don't think revenge. Again, more emotion. Because when I finally checked in the platoon, there was dudes that were still wounded that took some of the remnants of Hogan, of the blast. Hogan absorbed the full blast of a kite string IED. He took it all. It killed him instantaneously. But he pushed a couple Marines outside of the blast area, and you could tell it affected them. But to see those Marines that he saved, and they're fathers now, like fucking Hogan, he protected generations before him, man. And I remember, and when I think about those young men who are living to this day, I think of the moment when I found Hogan. He was at Saddleback College over here in Mission Viejo, and he was near a vending machine, and I asked him if he wanted to be a Marine. He said, nah. And I gave him a card. I said, if you ever change your mind, I promise you I'll change your life. The very next day, he fucking became a Marine.
Wow.
And he, I remember that. I'm like, God, man, like that's where it starts. The bravery that I was talking about earlier, it's never intended, but it just somehow finds you. And it finds you, and it asks you, like, or you're presented with the opportunity, and it's up to you at that point, what do you do with that? And to know that Hogan answer that call and gave his life for 7 dudes and to continue on generations, man, that made me fucking proud to be part of, you know, Alpha Company 2nd Platoon, you know, like, goddamn proud of him.
Wow, that's a fucking amazing story, man.
Yeah.
That's awesome. You end up going to Afghanistan with these guys.
Yeah, so I can talk about the lead up to it. So I'm already in Alpha Company 2nd Platoon. I'm a staff sergeant. I'm a platoon sergeant at that point. You know, I'm not wet behind the ears anymore. I've seen a little bit of combat doing Fallujah, Iraq, and doing Haditha deployment with 3-1. You know, been around the block a little bit, I guess. But this time, this was a different fight, because at the same time when we were, as a staff sergeant, you have more information now. I'm not left in the dark as a lance corporal. So this time, as we're gearing up to deploy, our brothers with 3-5, 3rd Battalion, 5th Marines, they're in Afghanistan, Sangin, and they're just getting fucking slaughtered, man. A lot of them are coming home, and they're in Camp Mateo. Some of them are missing legs. We see them at the PX. They're wounded, you know, and they're just telling us flat out, like, this is going to be a fucking fight for you. I'm home because I'm wounded. And I didn't know the gravity of the situation until, you know, God bless his soul, he's not here anymore, but we had First Sergeant Carlisle. He was like a legend in the 3-5 community. He was wounded as a gunny in Afghanistan, in Sangin. This guy was known to leaving the COC in one vehicle by himself to go medevac a casualty by himself. Like, wow. Fucking crazy bastard. Carlisle got wounded, and when he should have been resting to prepare himself, he made a point to schedule a battalion meeting with all the staff and COs of 1-5, and he took us inside of this room. And he was in crutches. He had burns all across his body. He was still healing. He was bandaged up from the deployment. And mind you, 3-5 was still out there. He had a talk with all of the staff and COs, and he said, "Look, motherfuckers, like, you will go there and you will fucking fight. If you think that you're going to be immune because of your rank here, absolutely wrong. They will target your ass." None of us really believed it. None of us like we see what's happening, but it's kind of like, fuck, man, as a staff and CO, like, it's fucked up to say, but mostly it's the young guys who are gonna really get it, because they're out there pushing the pace. But that led me to believe, like, holy shit, this is a gunfight. If a gunny can get hurt, so can a staff sergeant, and you know, this is gonna be different than Iraq. So we then went ahead and we pushed to Sangin, Afghanistan, to relieve the battered 3rd Battalion, 5th Marines. And when I say battered, I say that with respect. They performed admirably, with distinction. They fought well. I fought with them in Fallujah as well. So it was only right to relieve them again, and we went to Sangin.
Okay, so walk us through Sangin, man. What was that like in Afghanistan? I heard a lot of fucking crazy shit from Afghanistan.
Yeah. So I was Alpha Company 2nd Platoon, and we went ahead and relieved Lima Company 1st Platoon of 3rd Battalion, 5th Marines. Why Lima Company 1st Platoon stood out? Because it was they lost their platoon commander. It was the son of General Kelly. His name is Lieutenant Kelly. He stepped on he hit a pressure plate IED, and it killed him instantaneously. So we were already on edge, me and my platoon commander, because the leaderships of these units were getting wiped out. And so our main job was, we controlled 2 patrol bases. It was called Patrol Base Usman, which was in the brown side, the desert. And then we had a farmland, the green side. It was called Patrol Base Gumbadi. And that's where our job was just to kind of hold these 2 areas, because Sangin was popular because it was the crossroads of opium trade. A lot of opium was coming from that area, and the Taliban was a fierce enemy. And like I explained to you earlier, I feel like when we fought in Iraq, we were fighting JV individuals, but here in Afghanistan, these guys were the varsity. They were heavily armed. They had Dishkas, they had M16s, they had M240 Bravos. They were actually fighting us with our own weapons. They had communications through ICOM chatter. They would actually fire and maneuver. They wouldn't just fire from a fixed position and run away. These guys would actually plan an attack on you, a complex attack, and they would stick around and fight. And the battalion felt it all across the battle space. You know, fighting in cornfields, fighting in villages. They didn't give a shit. It was happening.
How long did it take you to get in contact from entering your spot in Afghanistan?
Yeah, so our location was unique because we didn't have small arms fire in our area. I want to say our Bravo company experienced a lot of small arms fire. Our area was more of a mental mind fuck, and this is where I feel bad for the Marines, because we fought in a minefield. All of Sangin was a minefield, but particularly our area was littered with minefield. Everything that you were shown through School of Infantry went out the door. Tactical columns, any of that shit you could not do. You had to walk on you had to walk in the footsteps of the man in front of you. Any deviation from that could be you're fucking dead. You're gonna die. So our patrols had to change. Instead of going tactical columns, we were in a ranger file. We just walked in a line, straight line. And we had to walk. We had to use shaving cream to mark the path with us. We figured shaving cream because we were doing spray paint, but as we spray painted the ground after 200 patrols, the enemy can know where you're going all the time because the ground is spray painted all the time. And we found out that shaving cream dissipates over time. So I remember as a platoon sergeant, a lot of these agencies from back home would hit us up like, what do you need? We need shaving cream. Like, what the fuck you need shaving cream for? you have no idea, but it's going to save our life. So we use shaving cream to mark the ground. But there wasn't much contact for us as far as small arms fire. Here and there we'd get pop shots and, you know, engage back and forth. But it was the IEDs, the pressure plates, the IEDs made out of wood that was fucking us up.
Fucking splinter shrapnel and shit, no?
Yeah. They were smart. They made the IEDs out of wood, thin piece of wire between it. So then we would have no patrol walked out without a mine detector. So because they knew we had mine detectors, they made them out of wood, and then we started to catch onto the battery. And because they saw us catch onto the battery, they made the pressure plate, they put it here, and they put the battery way far out so we wouldn't be able to see it. So then we started getting smarter. We couldn't detect the wood, so let's use the dogs. So we had a bomb dog that was attached to us. His name was Sergeant Ace. And they caught onto the dogs. They started to dip the fucking pressure plates in ammonium nitrate so they couldn't smell it.
Holy shit.
So the dogs became useless. The mine detectors became useless, and then we just started to adopt the mentality of walking by faith and looking for ground disturbances, poking the ground, probing the ground with our bayonets, and that was it. That was the only way that we can kind of get around these things, and it was still scary. And that leads me to kind of probably the more harder moments in my deployment in Afghanistan. Was on our third month of deploying, or our third month there. It was relatively boring, and you know, it was 9 o'clock in the morning on June 30th, and my third squad was going out there to patrol areas of interest, and so I decided to go out with them at 9 o'clock in the morning, and we went. Well, we ended up in these cluster of houses, and somehow, some way, we got a bit disoriented. But we feel that there wasn't a threat because there were still kids around, and we were tossing candy out whenever we could. And, you know, there was a squad of us. It's fine. 9 o'clock in the morning, it's okay. There's nothing going on. We're just doing a standard patrol. Boy, was I fucking wrong. As we were on the rooftop and as we pushed down into the compounds, there was 4 of us. There was my 3 guys, and I was the 4th man, but I was the 3rd man inside of the line in there. And my lead sweeper, he triggers an IED and steps on it, and he gets launched 10 feet in the air, and he loses a leg immediately. So when he loses his leg and he hits that IED, I'm next to him, and 2 other Marines are next to him. We get blown black. We get blown by the explosion, and at that point I'm heavily concussed on the ground, and all I'm thinking, and as I'm trying to regain my senses, my ears are blaring. I got shit all over me. One of my Marines, his fucking leg's gone, and I got 2 dudes back at me. We're trying to figure out what the hell's going on. This time we're inside of a compound, so everybody, the rest of the squad is outside. They're not knowing what the hell's going on. They're just providing a cordon for us to ensure it's not a complex attack. So as we assess the situation, it's all in fight. It's pretty quick. We immediately, me and another Marine, rush to the Marine to provide, to do some combat life-saving immediately. We're trying to apply tourniquets. We're doing the best that we can. The guy in back of me, who was my squad leader, named Sergeant Chad Froker, he immediately gets on the comm to start spinning up a medevac to get us out of there, to get him out of there. So we're working on him. Mind you, we just took an explosion, and as we're working on him, I look back at Sergeant Froker, and I'm asking for some information about something, and he's walking and talking at the same time, within a span of like a minute, he steps on a fucking another one, and it was huge. It was big. It was like a 40-pounder. It was massive, and that one blew him to shreds right in front of me. Killed, like immediately, fucking just obliterated him. And at that point, I hit my second explosion, and I lose consciousness for about 2 to 3 minutes. Wow. So I wake up from this blast, and I want to paint the scenario to you at this point. This is what I'm seeing. I wake up from this blast. I have 1 urgent casualty in back of me. He's missing a leg, and he's in pain. I'm fucking blown to shit. I'm dazed as hell. I got another dude here who's concussed, and then I have my squad leader that's 10 meters away from me, and he's a triple amputee. He's already blown. But at the same time, from his explosion, the explosion was so powerful, all the dust from the ground was able to get blown out. And as I look around me, I'm fucking surrounded in a goddamn minefield, brother. They're fucking everywhere now.
Oh, fuck.
I'm thinking to myself, I'm thinking about my son. I'm thinking about how the fuck am I gonna get this dude out, and how the fuck am I gonna get him out? And outside of us, the Marines are screaming. They're trying to spin up a bird. We're fucked. I don't know what the fuck to do at this point. I can't even get to Sergeant Froker because I don't have a fucking mine. I don't have a mine detector anymore. It's fucking blown up, and nobody can get me from the outside because we're kind of trapped in this minefield. So I remember at this point, I remember I pray to God, man, and I say, fuck, dude, like take care of me here, and I walk as slowly as possible to Sergeant Froker. The guy in back of me, we applied a tourniquet as best as we can. He's secured. I just tell him, don't fucking move, stay there. We're gonna check on Froker. I get to Froker. He's dying, man. He's lost his left arm, or he lost his right arm. He's an amputee above the thighs. His testicles are out. His guts are out. And as we're trying to do, combat life-saving on him, as we're about to do, I just realized, man, I used all of my first aid on this guy. I got nothing for him. We got nothing. And that was the hardest part right there. It's just like, fuck, dude, I'm watching him die in a minefield. I don't know what the fuck to do. We're trying to figure this out. And this is like some of the hardest things as a staff sergeant, where it's like, for the first time, I'm dazed, I'm wounded, I have 2 urgent casualties. I don't know how to get these guys out of here. But this is where I talk about the uncommon valor was a common virtue. I see my Marines, these young fucking 18-year-old Lance Corporals and Corporals, man. They bust through the door and they're hopping over fucking IEDs in order to get to me and others, shit. Man. They're fucking carrying shit with them. I'm just like, holy crap, wow. I'm dazed. And somehow, some way, man, one of the Marines, he fucking hops through IEDs. He picks up Lance Corporal Childers in back of me, puts him over his shoulder, and fucking runs out there. Dude, after EOD reports, there was at least fucking 5 to 6 more second, third, fourth, fifth, seventh IEDs around us. It was a daisy chain. Wow. Pulls him out of there, and we end up getting a poncho, and we end up putting the Sergeant Froker onto the poncho, and we slowly get out of there, and we end up in a cornfield, and we await a helicopter. Now the battlefield is kinetic that day. Bravo company's taking contact, Charlie company's taking contact. There's a lot of fire going on, and so the helicopter takes forever to come. The airspace is too full. And I'm yelling at the airspace. My platoon commander finally meets me there, and I'm like, "Sir, we need it now. He's dying." We're yelling at the helicopter pilots, and we're telling them, like, "You need to get the fuck down there. There is no more radio etiquette. We need help." And some of the hardest things as we're there with Sergeant Froker is that as he was succumbing to his wounds. I remember he had his left hand still, and he had his wedding ring, and I knew he was going to die. And we always know that with personal effects, they always get lost. So I remember telling one of my Marines, like Corporal Amador, I was like, "Hey, pull his ring off of him and give it to me. We're going to hold on to it," because I knew he was going to die. And that was the hardest thing, because to this day, I know that fucked up Amador. Like, sometimes he calls me throughout moments, and he's just like, "Man, I remember pulling the ring off of him. Like, yeah, that fucking sucked. I'm sorry. I'm sorry I did that to you, but it had to be done." And And in that moment, Sergeant Froker, he was going through a lot of trauma. I could tell he was a little bit brain dead a little bit, because there was some clear liquid leaving his ears. But he looked at us, and I remember him talking to one of the Marines, and I remember him saying, like, with all of his last strength was, "Let me go." And we didn't. Maybe it's because we were holding him, but really he was saying, like, "Let me fucking die." I think he saw the extent of his wounds, and he didn't want to live anymore. And eventually the helicopter came, and those fucking heroic pilots, man, they landed in the middle of a minefield, and we put Sergeant Froker and Childers into the helicopter, and they left. And then 20 minutes later, I'm on the ground still recovering from the blast. I get told Sergeant Froker is KIA. He died in the bird, and Childers is going to make it. I'd say after that was probably the heart-wrenching thing of doing a battle damage assessment. We had to, I'm still concussed. My Marines are in tears, man. They saw their squad leader get killed. Squad leader's like, that's like the fucking main guy. Like, you love your sergeant. They loved him. He was a good Marine. The hard part was when you do a battle damage assessment, you got to pick up shit. And, picking up his maps and his gear is one thing, but picking up fucking pieces of a kneecap, toes, and pieces of body parts, and putting it in a sandbag, and putting the sandbag in your pack, and then having to patrol all the way back, that was probably the most fucked up thing that I could ever fucking imagine, man. It was, it was rough.
Man. Whew.
Yeah.
I couldn't even imagine that, man. That's fucking...
Yeah. So, but there is something that was remarkable after this, and I want to share this part, because there was something that was always great, that I always remember, and this is what kept me in the Marine Corps for longer than expected. Those young Marines that were in his squad, they saw their squad leader get blown up. They were in fucking tears that night, man. They were crying. They were angry. They were scared. Shit, everybody was scared. when you think of a Marine dying, it's usually the young Lance Corporals, but not a sergeant, not a staff sergeant, but your fucking squad leader. That's like you're the god, you know, in the infantry. And those Marines, man, this is what, when I think about it, it just keeps me going. Those Marines, the very next day, the assistant patrol leader moved up to the squad leader. They put their fucking gear on the same way they did it the following day. They put a fuck ton of candy in their pockets, in their cargo pockets. They put their gear on. You could tell that they had tears running down their face, all that salt in their face still. And they went out there and they did it again, man. And I remember I was wounded in that morning, so I couldn't go out with them. So I was at the gate and I was watching them leave again. And as they were leaving, that's where I thought deep into what happened, and I was like, fuck, bro. Everybody talks about how the Corps gets weaker and weaker, but where do we find fucking young men like this that are able to withstand shit like that and do it all over again? And that was something that kept me like really proud of our institution. And even to this day, now that I no longer wear the uniform, and we may feel a certain way about the Marine Corps, or you're taking tanks away, you're doing this, all that other stuff. But at the end of the day, when these fucking guys are put to the test again, I know they will perform as admirable as the guys in Sangin, or the guys in Fallujah, or the guys in Hue City or Iwo Jima, man. Like, that's what makes me fucking really proud of them. And that was a really remarkable time for me, and it kept me in the Marine Corps longer than I was expected to stay. And I'm proud of that moment with them.
That's the spirit of the Corps right there.
That's it, man. That's who we are.
Whew, man. That was a wild. So you stay in. I'd like to get into. Fuck, it's almost like we need a moment to settle down, bro. You know what I mean? Right. Like, whew, man. How did you do transitioning out?
That was hard. I thought I always wanted to go past 20 and be a sergeant major and lead a battalion one day. But after his death, man, I was like dead inside for a very long time. Going through those last couple years in the Marine Corps, recruiting, I went back on recruiting duty, and, this time you wear your uniform a lot, and, like, you got all this shit on your chest, and people see me, like, I'm walking around, I'm in these areas, I got 2 fucking Purple Hearts, and people, like, always tend to ask, like, what the fuck, what's this, what's that, or, you're automatically respected because what's on your chest or whatever the hell. But what people don't know, that, like, during these moments, like, I was fucking dead inside, like, no matter what you whatever, no matter what you told me, whatever it said, like, in my mind, I fucking failed. Like that was such a failure as a leader in my life during that time. And no matter what I did in the Corps, it wasn't worth, like, it just didn't provide me the satisfaction. Like, I could not find happiness anymore. Even if I led, multiple recruiting offices, I got awards, I got promoted to gunny, it just never felt the same because of that day. So as I progressed through the Marine Corps, I did what most Marines did. I just shut up in color, and I eventually imploded and just got burnt out. And I recommend to any Marine, who's listening to this, active duty or not active duty, like, you got to take care of yourself. You got to seek help, and you gotta take care of yourself so you can sustain in the gun club as long as you can. And I didn't do that, so I made the difficult decision to apply for early retirement. And that in its own right was depressing, because at that point I made the decision to say to myself, I can no longer wear the uniform, and I am no longer able to be around Marines, that I must move on. And that was hard for me. Like, that depression kicked in as I was leaving the Marine Corps, like, no longer being a part of formations or battalion formations, or being a part of, just everyday Marine Corps stuff. Like, it's time for me to leave. But at the same time, I had to look at transition. That how am I gonna hang this uniform up properly, because this is not going to be my entire life. Like this portion of my life, it's just a small portion of it, and I gotta do it as best I can. So my transition was hard, and I'm still transitioning because I've only been out a year. But I can tell you, like, the things that I learned from the Marine Corps, just the basics, they were the things that kind of sustained me, and applying those basics, it really helped. When I think of transition, I think of as hard as as hard as it was a necessary thing, because I believe I'm definitely in a better spot. Like, I'm able to process things more. Back then I didn't have any good coping mechanisms. Now I understand what happened, and I understand how it just happened, and it's gone now, you know, and I got to live a better life. So for me, never straying away from the basics really helped me. You know, like, we bitch and complain about the Marine Corps from time to time, but the Marine Corps is wise in waking us up at 5:30 in the morning, and we're ensuring that we work out. We think that it's games, but really, when you do that in the real world, it helps you. The things that we learned in the Marine Corps, they are $1 million habits that if you actually took the little soft skills that you learned from the Corps and you applied it to the real world, you'd make a lot of money. In the real world, people go to leadership seminars, habit seminars, all these other things they'll spend thousands and millions of dollars for all this dumb bullshit that we as Marines have already been ingrained in from the moment we stepped on the yellow footprints. Those little things like that, of waking up, working out, showing up and doing the work, giving a damn about the people that you work with, fostering relationships, having a no-fail mentality of working until it gets done. That is something that I've always held on to, and I've learned from the Marine Corps. In the Marine Corps, you know, we as Marines, we do the work, and we don't expect to get the thank you for your service. You know, you get it, but it's not needed. So in turn, you learn to become a silent professional in your craft. And even now, as an entrepreneur, being a silent professional is extremely important, because during the dark moments when you're trying to build something, when you're trying to build revenue, when you're trying to do something, ain't nobody fucking clapping your hands for you, man. It's just you in the dark, putting in the work hours, working when you don't feel like it, working when people don't believe in your shit, working when you got demons coming in your brain, working no matter what. Like, you've been through worse, man. And I think for me, holding on to those basic Marine Corps principles of leadership and just everything we did, that's what has guided me through transition.
So what do you do now?
Yeah, so I go to school. I'm a student. I go to school, and I love to sit in classrooms now and learn from people who are not veterans. I'm able to see other points of views. I run a business, but at the same time, this allows me to be, you know, when I thought about what I do now and what I do in my former life, it's crazy. I don't. Some people know I'm veteran. A lot of people know I'm a veteran, but they don't know what I formerly did and what I've experienced in my life. And what's shocking to me, and what always you know, interesting to me, is I spent a good majority of my adult life focusing my energy and my talent on being destructive, learning how to destroy and protect life. And that's what we do as Marines. But in this new chapter of my life, my energy and my time is focused on the creativity of my life, learning on how I can be creative, how I can refine and beautify all aspects of my life because of the shit that I've been through. So I gained that by doing college, you know, learning from other people, getting the work done, you know, learning about geology and English, and learning how to write and solve math problems. But at the same time, I run a small business where I run a photo booth company, which I created during my when I was planning on getting married. When I was planning on getting married, me and my wife, we we realized how expensive this wedding was going to be. So instead of saving for it, I bought a photo booth. My wife wasn't too happy about it, but you know, she ended up jumping along, and we created a business that was started in my bedroom, that grew into my garage, that grew into a 1,000 square foot warehouse, now is in a 2,000 square foot warehouse.
Awesome.
With 15 employees doing close to 900 events a year with Netflix, Google, high profile clients.
Fucking that.
And yeah, when I look back to how this was all made, it wasn't made by me. I can tell you that. It was made by my experiences in the Marine Corps, but how I've been able to take the experiences from the Marine Corps and let that bleed into me to the young college kids and veterans that work for me. They are the guys that actually have made my business better. I'm just a guy in steering the boat, but really it's them pushing that motherfucker to where we are today. I'll never take credit for things like that, because that's what leadership is. I feel like, you know, leadership is the art of getting things done through people. People are important. People need to be at the forefront of everything that you do. And the people that I serve in the Marine Corps, they're responsible for my growth. They're responsible for my life, for keeping me alive. I will always forever love them, and that's something that I can never repay. And the people that work for me now, they're the ones just doing it all for me, and I can't tell you how much I respect every single one of my guys, my employees that actually, you know, do what they do, because there's a mutual respect. And that's what I do now, man.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. I'm glad you're doing fucking great, dude. It's awesome, man. So we're gonna wrap up. We've been at it for fucking a minute, man.
Yeah.
But this is fucking awesome, man. You did a great job. You know, I always give everybody opportunity to say any last words before we cut the tape. You kind of just went through that right now, but just in case you want to say anything else before we cut the tape, man, that was your opportunity.
Yeah, maybe to any veteran, even active duty ranks, focus on the mental health. We know this game, longevity is the key. It's okay to take time to yourself. It's okay to ask for help. You know, it's like a car. When the check engine light comes on, you pull over and you fucking check what's under the hood. And if you can't figure out what's under the hood, then you go to a professional, you go to a mechanic. And you're the same way, man. You know, you can't figure out what's wrong with you, you go seek help. But other than that, you know, like that's really all I got. You know, being a Marine and serving in the Marine Corps has been my life's greatest honor, and I'm very proud of the Marines that we have today. You know, so
awesome. Hey, thank you so much for being here, Thomas. It's a huge contribution, you know, to sit down and tell your story with Urban Valor, man. Huge fucking contribution. So the honor is ours, and fucking Semper Fi, brother.
Yeah, Semper Fi, man. Thanks, dude.
Push it to the limit, I can't go no more. Red light, no way, I'm coming back home. Long dirt road, all on my own. I'ma be the greatest on my neck.